What's up YouTube, Capital G here, giving you guys a quick discussion on everybody's favorite card in the game to hate right about now, Mystic Mine. You guys know that this has been the talk of the town in the Yu-Gi-Oh community. Pretty much every Yu-Gi tuber under the sun, anyone who is anyone, has made a video or two on this card in the last couple of weeks, and I feel like right now it's just, I mean, it's pretty much grown into the Yu-Gi-Oh version of the boogeyman. I mean, Mystic Mind talk and hate is absolutely everywhere. And don't get me wrong, it's a powerful card, and maybe you can say that it absolutely deserves it. But in this video, rather than shame Mystic Mind and its players by proxy further, as most of the videos and most of the topics have done, I actually want to look at it from the other side of the perspective, right? I want to look at it from a burn player's perspective and also talk about how Mystic Mind might actually do just a little teeny bit of good for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. And a lot of you guys are going to wince at that, maybe say, Cap, that is absolutely blasphemous, especially because we are leading up into national season around the TCG world. How on earth can Mystic Mind do anything positive for the game of Yu-Gi-Oh? Don't worry, I will get to that. And first off, let me start off by saying that this whole, I guess, hysteria around Mystic Mind, it is 100% absolute real. We've seen the deck have competitive results in the OCG, and where it currently stands now, it is by far and away the most in demand and highest selling card in the entire Dark Neostorm set on TCGplayer.com. So it tells us that we already know that the deck is competitive, and there are obviously tons of players out there buying up the card because, again, it's the fastest selling card in the set on one of the biggest secondary market sites on, basically the face of the internet. So I would assume that those people are buying up copies of Mystic Mind because they obviously want to play it at tournaments. But when you really look at, burn players in general, and I'm going back all the way into the first era of Yu-Gi-Oh, we all know the reputation of burn players. It is incredibly negative, and I always felt like it was incredibly unjustified. Burn players are 100% in this game treated like scum, man. They are treated like the scum of the earth. If you play a burn deck, you are just worse than sin. I've never really understood why, other or alternative win conditions have always been frowned upon on Yu-Gi-Oh, despite the fact that we received one in the very first booster set in Exodia. It feels like anytime you're not winning through just attacking with monsters, whether it be deck out or Exodia or effect damage, i.e. burn, it feels like you're always treated kind of as a second-class citizen, which I think is just honestly preposterous, because if you look at Yu-Gi-Oh today and the evolution of Yu-Gi-Oh, is it really more admirable to win with an infinite negation board? Because at the end of the day, you're essentially just trying to do the same exact thing. You're trying to make it so your opponent can play as little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh as possible. You're trying to constrict their options and lock down multiple, multiple aspects of the game, whether it be putting up a very powerful Thunder Dragon board that might include a Goliath, a Morphic Goliath, and you can't special summon from the extra deck. I got my Thunder Dragon Colossus on the field. You're not going to be able to search any cards. I have my Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. I'm going to negate one of your spells, traps, or monsters. I mean, how's that really any different or really any more respectable, admirable than just playing Mystic Mind? And when I look around the formats, I see a lot of decks like Crusadia Guard Dragon, Pendulum Editions, and Demion that basically do the same exact thing. They just want to put up anywhere from 3 to 5 negations in their first turn and say, have at it. You're going to not play pretty much any Yu-Gi-Oh at all, and it doesn't seem like anyone has a big problem with those decks. So I don't understand now why, Mystic Mind is out, the game is ruined, and this card is going to single-handedly just kill off Yu-Gi-Oh when everybody seems to be perfectly fine when a Crusadia Guard Dragon player puts up, Naturia Beast and Gamma Seal and F.A. Don Dragster turn 1, and you can't activate any cards because everything you throw at them is just going to be instantly negated. So it's just really weird that when you put burn in a very similar play style as other decks, that people only seem to have a problem with burn and not really the decks that kind of do the same exact thing. Another aspect that I think a lot of people are missing, and why people might actually want to play Mystic Mind burn, myself included, is the nostalgia aspect. And some of you guys who maybe you started playing Yu-Gi-Oh during Zexal or Arc V or maybe even the Vrains era, this probably is not going to resonate with you. But the thing about alternative win condition decks, right, whether it be all Exodia or deck outs, a lot of the times the strategy strategies have not really been successful, not on a competitive level. They have not seen a lot of, YCS or Shonen Jump level success. Burn is not in that category. Burn historically has seen a lot of success. It's just in the much older eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! During the GX era and the DM era, the GX era especially, Burn and its strategies were some of the best and most successful decks in the entire game. Comic Odyssey Burn, which is easily the most successful Burn deck in Yu-Gi-Oh! History. If you guys don't know what CO Burn is, I did an entire Yu-Gi-Oh! Story on it. That won 2 Shonen Jump championships. Chain Burn, which was created after the release of Cyber Dark Impact because of Chain Strike and Accumulated Fortune and all the subsequent support cards. That got 2nd place at a Shonen Jump championship. So Burn strategies were, they were incredibly solid back during the day, and they were actually pretty damn fun, especially CO Burn. If you guys don't know, it was an anti-meta burn deck that would have like a 15 card conversion side deck, and especially the machine version. Imagine playing against basically a burn stall deck game 1, and then game 2 they side in 15 cards and now they're playing machine OTK or they're playing monarchs. Like, people used to actually do that, and again, it was winning at the highest level of Yu-Gi-Oh! Competition. So when you think about some of the players who have been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! For a very long time, there's a nostalgia aspect. There's a time where we remember that Burn was like one of the best decks in the game, and a lot of players are looking at Mystic Mind and they're thinking, God, man, Burn has not been meta relevant in probably about a decade or maybe a dozen years in Yu-Gi-Oh! You guys probably don't know this because I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this, but the first time that I ever actually won a locals in Baltimore, I was playing Fire Princess Burn. This was a long time ago. I'm talking like 2003. I remember being a teenager, and when Ring of Destruction was released in Pharaonic Guardian, I remember thinking, oh my God, this card is going to be nuts in my Burn deck. So for a lot of people, we remember a much different time in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where the Burn strategy was, not just like fun to play, but it was actually competitively viable. Ever since, I would say, pretty much the end of 5Ds, Burn has kind of been dead. Yes, it has had some minor success, like Ryan Yu's, 2nd place finish with the Dragon Duel World Championship, him winning the Dragon Duel Championship, but outside of sporadic chain burn tops, it's never been anything that's sustainable. So Mystic Mind Burn is kind of a callback to the old days of like GX, and it's giving people like me a time to relive the glory days of Burn, where Burn was actually a very good and fun strategy, and maybe it can be again. Another thing that I think is getting lost in this is, and I hate to go all full Thanos mode on you guys, but to be completely honest, Yu-Gi-Oh! And the way that we build decks is a little bit broken right now, and I feel like it needs correction. Again, I'm just going to straight up quote Thanos. If you look at a lot of the best meta decks in the game, how many decks are actually running dedicated spell and trap removal in the form of spells and traps in the main deck? I'm talking about in game 1. When's the last time that you actually played against a deck that was consistently taking out your back row and its name wasn't Harpies or True Draco or something like that? It feels like it just doesn't happen anymore, at least unless they're using monster effects. You look at some of the best decks in the game, Thunder Dragons don't play any actual spell and trap removal cards. It's all in the form of monsters. Sky Striker, this is a deck that is, 80% of the freaking deck is spells, and they only run 1 card in their entire deck that is dedicated for spell and trap removal. That would be Jamming Wave. I know Afterburner can get rid of spells and traps, but that's really monster removal, so I'm not going to count that. Salamangreat, I would argue that Rage is the only card in their entire deck that the sole purpose can kind of just be to get rid of, spell and trap cards. So when you look at a lot of the meta decks, Guru Control, Altergeist, they don't run any cards that are just, the sole purpose is to get rid of back row, and I kind of feel like, why shouldn't Burn just come along and punish players for poor deck building? If you guys go back to like the 5Ds era, look at a deck like Teledad. We were running things like Heavy Storm, Mystical Space Typhoon, and 3 copies of Phoenix Wind Blast all in the main deck just to make sure that you didn't have to, deal with those back row, or just to make sure you didn't get wrecked by, an anti-meta or a stall deck or something like that. You throw in a deck like Lightsworn, which was also popular at that time, it would pretty much be the same cards, but Lightsworn would even maybe play Giant Trunade and Cold Wave, and although some of those powerful cards, that I've brought up have been banned, it's not like Konami hasn't given us multiple replacements. It's not like they haven't given us, in the past few years, things like Twin Twisters and Heavy Storm Dusters for decks that can't even afford to pay the cost, things like Red Reboot, Denko Sekka. Just compare the amount of good burn burn cards we've gotten in the last 5 years to good spell and trap suppression cards. Like, it's not even close. Konami is giving us all of this or all of these tools to get rid of spells and traps, and it really just feels like we're not actually running them. We're just relegating them to the side deck. So I kind of feel like burn should kind of be here to straighten things out, to balance things a little bit. But those are just some of my thoughts. I kind of feel like burn is due because it really hasn't been a viable strategy in pretty much a decade. I also feel that Mystic Mine burn is no more degenerate than a lot of the meta decks. I mean, there's no way that you can frown upon burn but then smile when you open the nuts and Endymions and have 4 negates, because you're essentially playing the same exact game that the burn player is doing. And lastly, I really do feel that if you're playing absolutely no spell and trap removal, then it's your own damn fault when you get wrecked by it. It'd be one thing if Mystic Mine had some type of protection, but it has absolutely no protection built into it. So while it is one of the most powerful floodgates of all time, if you were playing it back in the old days of Yu-Gi-Oh, it might be countered a lot harder. And it's not like we don't have a lot of good cards in our disposal, we just choose not to run them. But whatever you guys think, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.